Hello and welcome to Mrs. Pam Reads. I'm coming around. I have been playing pickleball this morning and I thought perhaps it would be a good time to sit and rest for a minute. I think it's always a good idea when you've been having strenuous activity, whether it's yard work or pickleball or golf or just out for a walk, to go ahead and say, you know what, I think I'm going to rest for a minute. So I thought while I was here resting, we could go ahead and read another chapter in my glasses are in the way, A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. So last time we were in chapter 12, and it was a kind of a flashback chapter. That bully Tom had stolen Ove's watch that belonged to his father, and Ove finally had had enough, and he decked him. In the hospital, Tom said that he slipped, and no one else said any differently. So that's what happened in chapter 12. We're moving on to chapter 13, and I think we're back in present time, and we will have to break that one up into 2 videos. So let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 13, In a Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. Ove's funny, titters the 3-year-old with delight. Yeah, the 7-year-old mumbles, not at all as impressed. She takes her little sister by the hand and walks with grown-up steps towards the hospital entrance. Remember, a couple chapters back, the lanky one, the neighbor across the street, fell off the ladder, and Ove has driven the family to the hospital. Their mother looks as if she's going to have a go at Ove, but seems to decide there's no time for that. She waddles off, she's pregnant, she waddles off towards the entrance, one hand on her pouting belly, as if concerned that the child may try to escape. Ove walks behind, dragging his steps. He doesn't care that she thinks it's easier just to pay up and stop arguing, because it's actually about the principle. Why is that parking attendant entitled to give Ove a ticket for questioning why one has to pay for hospital parking? Ove is not the sort of man who'll stop himself from roaring, "You're just a fake policeman!" at a parking attendant. That's all there is to say about it. You go to the hospital to die. Ove knows that. It's enough that the state wants to be paid for everything you do while you're alive, when it also wants to be paid for the parking when you go to die. Ove thinks that's about far enough. He explains this in so many words to the parking attendant, and that's when the parking attendant started waving his book at him. And that's when Parvana started raging about how she'd be quite happy to pay up, as if that was the important part of the discussion. Women don't seem to get principles. He hears the 7-year-old complaining in front of him that her clothes are smelling of exhaust, even though they kept the Saab's windows rolled down all the way. It wasn't possible to get rid of the stench. Their mother had asked Ove what he'd really been doing in the garage, but Ove had just answered with a sound more or less like when you try to move a bathtub by dragging it across some tiles. Of course, for the 3-year-old, it was the greatest adventure of her life to be able to drive along in a car with all its windows down although it was below freezing outside. The 7-year-old, on the other hand, had burrowed her face into her scarf and vented a good bit more skepticism. She'd been irritated about slipping around with her bottom on the sheets of Ove newspaper had spread across the seat to stop them filthying things. Ove had also spread newspaper on the front seat, but her mother snatched it away before she sat down. Ove had looked more than advisably displeased about this, but managed not to say anything. Instead, he constantly glanced at her stomach all the way to the hospital, as if anxious that she might suddenly start leaking on the upholstery. "Stand still here now," she says to the girls when they are in the hospital reception. They're surrounded by glass walls and benches smelling of disinfectant. There are nurses in white clothes and colorful plastic slippers, and old people dragging themselves back and forth in the corridors, leaning on rickety walkers. On the floor is a sign announcing that elevator 2 in entrance A is out of order, and that visitors to Ward 114 are therefore asked to go to elevator 1 in entrance C. Beneath that is another message announcing that elevator 1 in entrance C is out of order, and visitors to Ward 114 are asked to go to elevator 2 in entrance A. Whew! Under that message is a third message announcing that, wow, Ward 114 is closed this month because of repairs. Under that message is a picture of a clown informing people that Beppo, the hospital clown, is visiting sick children today. "Where did Ove get to now?" Parvana bursts out. "He went to the bathroom, I think," mumbles the 7-year-old. "Clown!" says the 3-year-old, pointing happily at the sign. "Do you know you have to pay them here to go to the bathroom?" Ove exclaims incredulously. Parvana spins around and gives Ove a harassed look. "Do you need change?" Ove looks offended. "Why would I need change?" "For the bathroom." "I don't need to go to the bathroom." "But you said," she begins, then stops and shakes her head. "Forget it. Just forget it." "When does the parking meter run out?" she asks instead. 10 minutes. She groans. "Don't you understand it'll take longer than 10 minutes? "In that case, I'll go out and feed the meter in 10 minutes, says Ove, as if this wasn't quite obvious. "Why don't you just pay for longer and save yourself the bother?" she asks, and looks like she wishes she hadn't as soon as the question crosses her lips. Because that's exactly what they want. They're not getting a load of money for time we might not even use. "Oh, I don't have the strength for this," says Parvana, and holds her forehead. She looks at her daughters. Will you sit here nicely with Uncle Ove while Mom goes to see Dad, please?" Yeah, agrees the 7-year-old grumpily. "Yes!" the 3-year-old shrieks with excitement. "What?" whispers Ove. Parvana stands up. "What do you mean, with Ove? Where do you think you're going?" To his great consternation, the pregnant one seems not to register the level of upset in his voice. "You have to sit here and keep an eye on them," she states curtly, and disappears down the corridor before Ove can raise further objections. Ove stands there staring after her as if he is expecting her to come rushing back and cry out that she was only joking. But she doesn't. Ove turns to the girls, and in the next second, he looks as if he's just about to shine a desk lamp into their eyes and interrogate them on their whereabouts about the time of the murder. "Book!" screams the 3-year-old at once and rushes off towards the corner of the waiting room. And there's a veritable chaos of toys, games, and picture books. Ove nods, and having confirmed to himself that this 3-year-old seems to be reasonably self-motivating, he turns his attention to the 7-year-old. "Right. And what about you?" "What do you mean, me?" she encounters with indignation. "Do you need food, or do you have to go for a wee or anything like that?" The child looks at him as if he just offered her a beer and a cigarette. "I'm almost 8. I can go to the bathroom myself." Ove throws out his arms abruptly. Sure. So bloody sorry for asking." She snorts. "You swored!" yells the 3-year-old as she turns up again, running to and fro between Ove's trouser legs. He skeptically peruses this grammatically challenged little natural disaster. She looks up, and her whole face smiles at him. "Read," she orders him in an excitable manner, holding up a book with her arms stretched out so far that she almost loses her balance. Ove looks at the book, more or less as if it just sent him a chain letter insisting that the book was really a Nigerian prince who had a very lucrative investment opportunity for Ove and now only needed Ove's account number to sort something out. "Read," she demands again, climbing the bench in the waiting room with surprising agility. Ove reluctantly sits about a yard away on the bench. The 3-year-old sighs impatiently and disappears from sight, her head reappearing seconds later under his arm, with her hands leaning against his knee for support, and her nose pressed against the colorful pictures in the book. "Once upon a time there was a little train," reads Ove, with all the enthusiasm of someone reciting a tax statement. Then he turns the page. The 3-year-old stops him and goes back. The 7-year-old shakes her head tiredly. "You have to say what happens on that page as well. And do the voices," she says. Ove stares at her. And that is the middle of the chapter, so we're going to go ahead and stop right here. We will continue with chapter, I think we're in 13, in the next video. So thank you for joining me for Mrs. PM Reads. I'm going to change my camera battery, and we're going to complete this chapter really quickly. Gotta get my sign right here. All right, it's just my reminder that if you guys have not yet clicked the subscribe button, you may want to do that. And when you do, you'll see a little bell, and you click that, and then you will get updates every time a new video posts, because you don't want to miss the rest of the chapter. All right, you guys, I will see you next time. Bye.